Rockstar Games' Red Dead Redemption 2, a unique role-playing game set in the waning age of the Wild West, launched a week ago for Xbox One and PlayStation 4. I've been playing for about 8 hours every single day on Twitch or more, and I can honestly say that I have never played a game quite like it. In this review, we aim to dissect Rockstar's new IP and try not to rob players of insight that may assist them in their decision about this game. Buckle up, partner, because here we go. Before we ride into the heart of the review, I wish to make it known that I have not played the previous title, and because of that, I have no way of comparing the two games. I've played about 90 hours of total gameplay, and I have finished the main story and all of the side quests. This gives me not only a great understanding of the game's mechanics, but also its story and structure, which leads us to the first section. Red Dead Redemption 2 takes place before the events of the previous title, making it a prequel. You take on the role of Arthur Morgan, an outlaw in the same gang as John Marston, who was the protagonist of the first game. Through all of the robberies, heists, and life-or-death situations you are inexplicably dragged through, Arthur and John become quite close and begin to question what they are doing in such a gang. Red Dead Redemption 2 features different endings that are defined by the choices you make over the course of the game, and the ending I achieved was tragic, to say the least. Having heard the game was very much GTA just in the Wild West, I was not anticipating Red Dead Redemption 2 to have such a strong narrative, or one that really drives gameplay forward in such a unique manner. The story, the characters, the way it's all told, all of these things wrapped together into one surprisingly polished package is hands down the missing link that sets Red Dead Redemption 2 apart from any other game I have played in recent memory. Rockstar has simply outdone themselves in this regard, and making a comparison to any other title is extremely difficult to do because of it. The setting of Red Dead Redemption 2 is a fictional version of what would be considered the heartland of the US of A in 1899. It's fictional because none of the places are real and the people are not either. However, the geography and technology of the time period is very much what you'd expect to find. And in addition, you will see characters and events that are based loosely on historic events, such as the interactions between the US Army and Native Americans. This provides an original playground to explore and participate in, with a high amount of freedom that isn't completely restricted by actual history. Rockstar has once again outdone themselves in this regard because it very much feels like what you'd expect the US to be like in that time period. Steam-powered trains travel around the map, taking passengers between destinations that are far apart. You can herd cattle for a few extra bucks, or hunt some game if you're low on food. On top of that, the locales are spot on, and you can really see the different geological regions of the USA come to life. Missions. The gameplay of Red Dead Redemption 2 is something a bit different than I was used to. Having never played a GTA game or the previous iteration of the franchise, I really had no idea what to expect. As I had played Assassin's Creed Odyssey to great extent just before, I guess I'd assumed it would be similar to that, just without all the stealthy murdering. However, I was way off base, and as I mentioned earlier, the gameplay is pulled along by the story. To give you some idea what I mean, the player must accept missions in order to advance the game's plot, but while on said missions, they cannot do anything that would cause it to fail, or they must reload. This means that free roaming and any activities you wish to partake in that aren't quest-related must be done between missions. This is a serious departure from other modern-day RPGs where you usually just pick up as many quests as you can, and do the ones nearest to you while resolving any encounters that appear as this occurs. Needless to say, it took me a bit to get used to, and while ultimately it worked out, I found it mildly annoying as it did restrict my freedom just a bit. Once on a mission, however, things move fairly quickly, after a bit of writing, and you never really know what exactly will happen. Missions have you do anything from robbing banks to assassinating rival gang bosses. But the thing they all have in common is that you are always surrounded by a portion of Red Dead's stellar characters with extremely good dialogue that overlays nearly every facet of the mission you are on. This leads to a bonding with said characters, and one that was really unexpected, particularly because most of them are murderers and thieves. Free roam and survival. Red Dead Redemption 2 very much allows the player to interact with people and locations outside of missions. From random encounters to side quests and other activities like fishing or hunting, there is never a shortage of things to do. Part of the reason for this is that the game features some survival elements that affect the gameplay. Not only must players take care of themselves, but also their horse and their camp. Players will need to eat and sleep in order to maintain their stamina, health, and dead-eye cores. This will allow them to be more effective when running, swimming, shooting, etc. This also applies to your horse, who must be fed and groomed occasionally in order to bond with it. Bonding with your horse allows it to be more effective. Additionally, your camp will need ammo, money, and food to survive, and they will rely heavily upon you to supply these things. This means you will need to bring or purchase ammo, make money and donate it, and also bring game back so that they can eat. You can hunt and fish from many different species, and frankly, it never really gets old. Sometimes when playing, I'd find myself hunting just because there was a new animal I'd never seen before, and I wanted to see what I'd get for doing so. You can fish with a traditional pole, or you can go the Crocodile Dundee route and use dynamite, which is hilariously fun. Combat. Combat is heavily based upon the guns of the time period with a few melee weapons mixed in. Unlike other games where you shoot at enemies, in this one you must pull R2 to fire, then R2 to chamber the next bullet, and then R2 again to fire once more. This prevents any sort of automatic firing and makes firing in rapid succession nearly impossible. However, it is extremely satisfying when you take out an enemy, particularly if you get a headshot. Red Dead Redemption features a system called Deadeye where time slows and you are able to queue up a series of shots on multiple targets before resuming and watching Arthur obliterate enemies in real time. This allows you to kill many enemies rapidly and really helps out when on horseback, as it's extremely difficult to aim at moving targets while also riding. Deadeye is not infinite and must be replenished from time to time with consumables and rest. Perhaps my biggest complaint with the game is in the aiming controls and really the overall controls in general, and you start off with some really strange combination of auto lock-on and snap to target. It's almost as if Rockstar knew their aiming system was extremely poor and compensated for it by making it so you really didn't have to aim at all by default. Since I didn't find it particularly fun for the game to essentially just aim for me, I spent hours adjusting the settings to get it to handle somewhat like a normal FPS. And while I finally dialed it into a passable standard, I was over halfway through the game before this actually occurred. On the audio frontier, Red Dead Redemption 2 has some of the best voice acting I have ever heard in a game. The characters sound natural, emotional, and their accents are frankly spot on. I actually found myself becoming very fond of Arthur, and while I generally like character creation in games, Rockstar did a fantastic job of making me emotionally invested.
Let's meet up at the factory. That's right! Yeah! Go with him. Try and help there. I'm better off alone.
We're riding with you.
Come on, then. Yeah! Let's ride!
The music was spot on, giving me goosebumps on more than one occasion and really helped to elicit the Western feeling of the game. It was truly amazing how a few chords on a guitar at just the right time really brought home some of the scenes and overwhelmed me with immersion. I don't think I've ever recommended a soundtrack in a single review I've ever done, but you should definitely check this one out. Visually, it's one of the best looking games on current gen, and the only other games that even come close in my opinion are God of War and Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Although the game only runs at 30 FPS, the details are simply so stunning it doesn't matter. Foggy swamps, sunrise, sunset, rain and thunder, all of these things make the universe of Red Dead Redemption feel very much alive, and lighting, textures, and more will leave you awestruck on more than one occasion. Red Dead Redemption 2 was not the game I wanted or expected, but instead was the game I needed. Not only did it break from the mold of games I have played for the past several years, but it provided a giant living and breathing world in which to get lost. Set aside the story and characters, set aside the engaging and interesting quests, and you're still left with something special. I could spend hours just riding around, coming up with new and interesting ways to commit some hilariously heinous crimes, and online hasn't even launched yet. The biggest downsides to the game are the slower pacing, particularly early on, and the controls that at times are just plain infuriating. However, if you can get past that, you will find a game that has so much depth you will learn new things even after 50 hours plus of playing. Red Dead Redemption 2 only gets better and better as you progress, and although I'm not entirely sure it's the game to beat in 2018, I do believe it is at very least in the conversation. For $59.99 USD, you'll get around 100 hours of gameplay at the highest quality that the gaming industry can currently deliver.